Okay. So I think yeah. Okay, I think we're going to get started. So hi, everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar, Urban Archive, Making Archives More Accessible Through Data, Design, and Collaboration, with our guest speaker, Ben Smyth. My name is Nathan Goldwag, and I want to thank everyone for showing up here tonight, first of all. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know about our next event, which is a tour of the Apollo Theater, Saturday, January 13th at 10:45 a.m. You can register on our website. I think the current tour is filled up, but there's a wait list and there may be another one. So just remember that. So Ben Smyth is the co-founder of the technology nonprofit Urban Archive and owner of the design studio Little Mega. He lives and works in New York City. For the last 7 years, Ben and the team at Urban Archive have been creating technology that enhances collection engagement and digital storytelling, and he's going to tell us about that today. So before we get started, a few final housekeeping notes. This event is being recorded, so if you wish to turn off your cameras, please do so. And we ask that everyone silence their microphone for the duration of the talk. If you have any questions or comments, just drop them into the chat box, and there should be time at the end for a Q&A session. And I'm also going to put a few links in there to relevant websites. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben now.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan. And thank you guys for having me. I guess before we even get going, I'd be super curious to know where everybody is dialing in from. So if there's anyone that's brave enough out there, if you guys don't mind just throwing in your location in the chat just to see what kind of New Yorkers we have. Oh, nice. Olympia, Washington, Albuquerque, Honolulu. Nice. We got some New York representation as well. Cool. All right, awesome. So yeah, like Nathan said, we started Urban Archive about 7 years ago. Our mission at Urban Archive is to extend the reach of cultural organizations by providing them with collaborative tools to share local history. And that is definitely a mouthful to say. At this point, we have 5 cities that are partners in Urban Archive. So all of you that are outside of New York, we'd love to talk with you guys just about what Urban Archive could do with some of the organizations in your community, just about getting history out in the open. And I guess on this previous page, I should have said, if anybody is not familiar with Urban Archive, you guys can go ahead and scan this QR code to download our iOS app, or in the chat, I'll drop a URL to a page that you can kind of explore as we're going through this. And so Urban Archive is, like I said, we have 5 cities and 123 partners on the platform at this point. And a lot of this started off just because so many of our institutional partners have these incredible collections. And I think for me, being a New Yorker, being somebody that actually lives and works in the Lower East Side, I've always been drawn to historical imagery that is, really relevant to my current location, wherever I may be living. And I was, just to kick off tonight's presentation, I thought I would share a particular image with you. So I don't know if we have any viewers here that are familiar with the Lower East Side. If you are, then please give a shout out. That's where I do live and work. And this is a super interesting image to me. This is an image from the Museum of the City of New York. It was taken in 1928, and it actually has a ton of New York history in it. So I'll just give you a quick run through of this image. In the center of this image is a park called Seward Park. This is the first municipal park in the United States. We have the Forward building here, which is a taller building on the right-hand side, the Seward Park Library, Educational Alliance, which is actually where my son went to preschool. This entire swath of area over on this side has completely been demolished, and I actually now live in a new, or a building that was actually built in the 1960s, which replaced this entire community here. There's an old Lowe's Theater, which is on the corner of Canal and Essex Street. And this building remains to this day completely vacant. And so there's just all kinds of cool history that we can tie to this particular image. And so when we started out with Urban Archive, a lot of what we were seeing is we had all of these cool collections. You know, like Nathan said, I'm an exhibition designer as well. So I've worked with a lot of the partners that we partner with to create exhibitions. And obviously for these exhibitions, we're often dipping into the digital collections of these institutions. And for the most part, every institution has their collection portal where it's this siloed collection, which lives oftentimes buried on the institution's website, so that the general public doesn't have great access to these collections. And so this is something that when we set out to build Urban Archive, this is one of the things that we took into consideration. And we thought to ourselves, what if we were to take these incredible collections, and if we were to aggregate these collections into one centralized resource? So like I said, we have all kinds of different institutional partners, from large institutional partners like Museum of the City of New York, New York Public Library, to smaller institutions like Village Preservation, who's telling specifically the story of the village in New York, or Prospect Park Alliance, which is just telling the history of Prospect Park. And so we wanted to aggregate these collections into one centralized resource, and then add geolocation data so that we could tie relationships between specific locations. And then so for me, as this person who loves and lives in the Lower East Side, I then have additional exposure to all these incredible assets from our other partners that are participating in the project. So what was this one image, which was found on MCNY's website, then becomes this thing that can tell a history of all kinds of locations. And so you can see this is just a small collection of images that I brought in from our institutional partners around this particular intersection. And it's really actually pretty interesting, the different things that we can see through this. An unbelievable amount of New York City history. And so, like I said, this is Seward Park, which is the first municipal park in New York. This is the Seward Park Library, and we actually have some images from the New York Historical Society of the exterior of the library, which is actually a Carnegie library, and you can see some young gentlemen checking books out of the library, and now my kids are doing the exact same thing 100 years later. You can see one of our partners is the Department of Environmental Protection, and they're doing geological testing right here on the corner of Hester and East Broadway. And so there's all these incredible images that really show just an amazing amount of history. Some other ones quickly. This is from the New York Transit Museum. And when the subways were being constructed, the MTA, or the independent subway lines at the time, went around and they documented all of the locations where the subways would be dug, because often they were doing a cut and cover method where they would actually dig out the road, construct the subway system, and then build the road back on top of it. And so the Transit Museum has about 80,000 photographs where they documented all of the intersections to see if there was any cracking or damage that was caused by the digging that had been done. We have the old Lowe's Theater, which is down here in this bottom right-hand corner. And then we have the actual building right here that has the cupola on the top of it. And this is actually where this photograph was taken from. So somebody was standing on the top of this building and looking down on this intersection and taking this photograph. Since this photograph, some of these buildings are now gone. So you can see this is an old bathhouse, which was actually right here in this image. This bathhouse was knocked down. Years later, this is a more modern collection from Village Preservation. And this is a water fountain, which now today has become defunct, and they're trying to raise money to bring it back. But this water fountain actually replaced the location of this bathhouse. And then there's some old imagery from 1898 of them actually clearing the land to create Seward Park in the first place. So this predates this image by about 30, 40 years, something like that. And then in the distance, you can see this old factory, which used to be in the Lower East Side, right here in the skyline, which has since been replaced by middle income housing in the 1960s as well. So tremendous amount of history. And I think it just goes to show you the power of what archives can do when you bring them together in one centralized resource. So that's really our goal, is trying to utilize these things and to story tell through the collections of our institutional partners. And so this is just an example of this intersection. You can see all of these purple dots and purple squares are local history that we have tied to this particular region. So a ton of history for people to explore. I encourage you to go to the app or to go to urbanarchive.org if you want to actually check out some of the images that you see. And if you click on this square right here, this is the outline for what is Seward Park in the Lower East Side. And this you'll see just the diversity of assets that are tied to that particular location. So there's probably 50, 60 images that we have just for that one spot. So with, for me, again, this is actually another view of that cupola where this image was taken from. And so we wanted to bring this history to the streets. And so when we set out to start Urban Archive, this is actually on the corner of Hester and Orchard Street. And my kid's school is actually right behind where this image was taken. So I go to this corner every morning. And you can see what this corner used to look like over 100 years ago. So this is actually 1898 as well. You can just see the street vendors, and this is pre-Essex Market being open, where you just had street vendors all through the Lower East Side. And I think this image was taken in about 2017, something like that. So a lot of the architecture remains. And for me, as a Lower East Sider, as a New Yorker, and I'm sure many of you New Yorkers can attest to this, there's just an unbelievable amount of history that is in each and every neighborhood, each and every street. And we've only scratched the surface of the history that could potentially be told. And so that's one of the goals that we have at Urban Archive. So when we started out, we actually created our iOS app. And so we created something that would take these digital collections on the go. Like I said, we knew that these collection portals were online, siloed in the institution's websites, but we thought that if we could aggregate these and we could get them on a mobile app, it would be a really interesting way for people to explore these, if you could actually experience history where it happened. And so we've been now playing with Urban Archive for a number of years and figuring out different ways that we can utilize the data. And really quickly, the way that it works is we generally form a relationship with institutional partners. They give us the metadata and the images that they have for their collections. We ingest those into our back end, and then we're able to push out those collections into our web app, our iOS app, and other kiosk integrations, which I'll get into in a second. Our app actually won the Webby Award in 2020 for the best cultural app. And we have other technology integrations that have since gone on to win some awards as well. But what we're really hoping to do is, with each bit of technology that we're developing, we're hoping to build things out so that our institutional partners can benefit from the collaboration that we've created with them. And like I said, organizations, you can geotag assets within the platform. You can create walking tours, and you can use your assets and the assets of other partner organizations to storytell. And that's part of the agreement when everybody signs up. I think that with a typical exhibition, you're going out and you're getting the rights to utilize someone's image for a particular exhibition that you may have in your venue. And this is a little bit different because obviously everything is online and everyone has agreed that people can utilize their assets to assist in storytelling. And by doing that, you're just enabling the community to be able to experience these assets. So that's really exciting for us to see. So in addition to geolocating your assets, every organization also gets a profile page. So similar to other social media accounts, Everstation has a handle, and you can share this handle with your community so that people can see all of your assets in one location. You can see the digital collections that you've added to the platform. You can see all of the stories that you've told, all of the walking tours that you created, and then relevant information about the institution as well. And so we want everyone to feel like this is something that's been customized for them. It's something that they are proud of and that they want to share with their community. And so we also produce these monthly reports for all of our institutional partners just to show them, how their collections are doing. We establish goals with each of our partners just to make sure that they, we're aligned in what we're trying to do with them. We actually put together marketing campaigns for each of our partner organizations where we target demographics and people that they're looking to reach out to. And then we share their collections and their stories on social media with people that may be interested in that content. So that's just something that we're providing with each of the partners that participate in the program. Another thing that we've done more recently in the last few years is we formed a partnership with Link NYC. And so this is a program that we actually developed originally with the Museum of the City of New York. And now we have other institutional partners that are benefiting from this integration as well. And the way that it works is, like I said, we have this historic data on the right-hand side, which is all of the purple content that you see. So all of the purple content there signifies that we have some kind of historical information, whether it's the collection, the collections of our partners, or it could be stories that our partners have put on specific locations. And the darker the purple is, the more information that we have at that particular location. And so we're able to have the lat-long coordinates of all of these assets because everything has been geolocated. And then we can make a relationship with Link NYC, which has all of these kiosks, which if you're a New Yorker, they're sometimes controversial devices. But they act as advertising revenue for the city and public Wi-Fi hotspots as well. And so these are replacing phone booths all across the city. And what we're able to do is we know the exact location of every one of these kiosks. Each of them has a unique ID, and then we're able to actually get the lat-long coordinate from a open data that's being provided by Link NYC. And then through an API that we've created with them, we're actually able to draw a 200-meter radius around every single one of these kiosks across the city. And actually, I think this is older data that I have in here. We now have about, there's almost 3,000 kiosks, I think, across the 5 boroughs. So there's a ton of kiosks across New York. And what we're able to do is actually present local residents with location-specific imagery that is from their favorite partner organizations. And so, like I said, we started this with MCNY, and we now have probably 10, 12 partners that are utilizing this. And this has done a ton for our partners, just because it gets so many people looking at these images. Every neighborhood that you go to, it's new imagery that you're seeing. And these are a couple template mock-ups of an update to the template that we have produced in the last few months, just making it super clear and minimal, showing you where the location is, who's provided the image, so it's being tagged by the partner organization, and when the image was taken. And so again, these will all present within 200 meters of that particular kiosk itself. So it's hyper local information that's being pulled into the kiosk. And something that we haven't released yet, but this is coming in the future, is actually adding walking tours to these kiosks as well. So as you're walking around the city, you may start to see these images on some of the kiosks. Excuse me. And these will be location-specific walking tours that will start from a particular kiosk, and they will walk you around the neighborhood. So you could scan the QR code and then go on a walking tour that one of our institutional partners has put together. So from this program alone, we generated we generate almost 500 million impressions annually. It is something that is constantly up on screens, and this is 500 million impressions for assets that would still be sitting on institutional collection portals. But I think by aggregating them, by adding this geodata and making it a database that's easy for other people to work with, we're able to get this technology much more out in the open. So from through Urban Archive, our iOS and web app have about over 200,000 users, and like I said, we're near at about a 500 million impressions annually, and we have those 5 cities and 120 organizations that are currently participating in it. And so for the last year or so, we've actually been thinking about how we can make Urban Archive better. What are some of the things that are going to make our institutional partners happier? What are projects that they're looking to do in order to educate and entertain their audience? And often institutions are using Urban Archive as an accessory to exhibitions or programs that they're putting on. And so we have a lot of partners that create walking tours to support an exhibition. And it's just a way of engaging with an audience outside of their typical gallery walls. So they're able to, especially really relevant over COVID, as these institutions had to shut their doors, and they were able to still provide some educational content that people could explore online. And so the next iteration of Urban Archive, we're actually changing up our interface. We've done a bunch of testing with our partners and with our audience, and we have really come to see that maybe by downplaying the map a little bit and by increasing the imagery, we're able to just increase retention, get people looking and exploring more images. And so we're always constantly trying to improve the platform just to make it more successful for our partners. So you can see here, this is an example of what New York looks like. This is an example of what Chicago, Illinois will look like. So really exciting news. The library, the Newberry Library in Chicago is actually signed up as a new partner. And so we will be doing our first expansion to a big metropolitan area. We have a few other cities that we have expanded to outside of New York, but this will be our first big city that we're getting rolling with. And so that's going to be happening in 2024, which is really exciting. So other updates is, like I said, Urban Archive acts as this aggregate. It's this thing that's where we pull all of these assets into this one centralized resource. We've had a lot of partners come to us and say, this is great, but we would really love to have a standalone project, something that we could maybe filter the data and create something that is, specific, or, created around a general theme or topic. And so a couple of years ago, we started to work with Queens Public Library here in New York to produce a project for them. And we actually did a joint application for a Mellon grant. And we ended up getting a Mellon grant together to produce a project called the Queens Name Explorer. And so the Queens Name Explorer looks like it is a standalone site. It's something that has QPL branding. It's something that is specific to Queens Public Library. And it has content, or a layer basically, that is filtered specifically to this topic. And so what the Queens Name Explorer is QPL decided that they wanted to highlight name locations across the borough of Queens. So whether it's a street, a public park, a school, any location that is named after a specific individual, you can now go to this project and sift through this particular archive to learn about the various figures that these places are named after. And so this is a really cool application for us because not all of the data or information is historical. There is some modern day stuff here, and we're able to produce this, like I said, as a standalone project. And give me 1 second while I clear my throat. So, QPL, this has been a really successful project for them. We're in the process of actually applying for a round 2 application for QPL to further enhance this project and to add some additional bells and whistles. And so because we went out and we actually got this original funding with QPL, we're able to now pass this technology on to all of our institutional partners. And so one of the reasons that we actually created Urban Archive in the first place is we have so many partners that go out and they create a one-off app or application for a specific project. And within 6 months, a year, that the exhibition or program is ended, the application becomes ignored, and eventually it dies and is no longer utilized by the community. And so that's something that we're really looking to avoid. We want to create something that we maintain, that we're constantly improving, and all of our partners that are involved in the project, they get to benefit from any new features that have been produced. And so we have other projects that we're currently working on, which we'll be releasing in 2024. And so again, these all use Urban Archive technology, but Newberry Library has a Chicago Ancestors project that they'll be producing. Brooklyn Resist has a project that we've actually previously worked on them with. And sorry, this is the Center for Brooklyn History. They did a project on public protest and resistance in Brooklyn. And so this is something that will be converted into a project page. Museum of the City of New York has a more modern project, which is about New York and new music. And this was an exhibition that actually has come and gone. And so rather than this exhibition just getting destroyed as it was, and new exhibition is now in its place, this content can now live on online, and people can explore it across the city. And it's just another resource that MCNY can point to for their staff or for their community. And another project that we're currently in talks with is doing a hip hop 50th project with Brooklyn Public Library. And so these are all projects that we're looking to get out in 2023. And so what ends up happening with this new iteration of Urban Archive, this V2, is institutional partners still have their profile pages. They can have these standalone sites, but these standalone sites can also be filtered or featured on their profile page. So you can see here, this is MCNY's profile page, where it just shows all of their collections. It filters the map information that they've shared, and it also highlights the projects that they've actually added to the platform as well, so people can find those. And here's one more example of a profile page for Newberry Library, and this is just showing their collections, and then again, a project that's been featured on their site. So this is a quick overview of Urban Archive. I would love to open it up to some questions, and I can get into some of the details of the projects or the various partnerships that we have on the platform. And I'd be happy to talk about some of the features that we have in there as well. So I will hand it maybe back over to Nathan, just to see if there's any additional information that you guys want to share.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating. So if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat, and I will ask them. I think I might have. Okay, so first question. Is the program limited to a minimum size city, or is it available for smaller cities as well?
No, so the smaller cities as well. If you go to Urban Archive and download the app, or you go to urbanarchive.org, you'll see that we have a few smaller cities. It's actually in Ogden, Utah. It is in Newburgh, New York. We have some partners in Switzerland that are utilizing it, and then also in Cali, Colombia.
So Rachel Danielle asks, she says she'd like to hear about the geolocation part of the process. Were GPS coordinates already in the metadata, or was it a process?
Yeah, so we have, there's two ways that we're going about that. There's been a few projects historically. Some of you may have heard of Old NYC, which is something that was done by a developer named Dan Vanderkamp, where he actually used OCR, just text recognition, to extract street corners out of metadata to geolocate assets. So that's one method that we can do something similar, where we're actually able to, if there is very clear metadata, we're actually able to extract data and add it as a location for that specific asset. Some of the collections have actually come with geodata. Every institution has different metadata standards that they've provided to the platform. So we've had, people that have come to us with no metadata, some people that have come to us with, just lat long coordinates, and then others that are just addresses. And we're willing to really work with everybody. In the past, we've actually had interns that have assisted in locating specific collections. So if there are collections that are very, city specific, that maybe are even more neighborhood specific, then we have interns that assist in some of that location process. And then we can, make things easier if the geodata is already there.
Cool. So Deanne Crothers wants to know if you have any history with the state of Mississippi, and specifically their Department of Archives and History.
We have none. So if you do, we'd love to talk to you guys. I think we're super excited to see Urban Archive go outside of the boundaries of New York. And so every organization, that can participate, we're all about encouraging them.
Ariel Morabito wants to know, is the app currently available only on iPhone?
So the app we only have an app that is iPhone based at the moment. Our goal is to actually, with this version 2 that I've been talking about, is really switching to a really good responsive website. So our goal is to look away, or to shy away from apps in the future, and to make it a really nice website that is accessible from all devices, whether it be a desktop, Android, or iOS device.
Sense. Evan Robb wants to know, do you think you could pull metadata from the Digital Public Library of America's public API? We already send them data that includes long-term coordinates in many cases.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we have other partners that we've collaborated with, where we've done, been able to tie into APIs to extract metadata. We'll have partners that have, given us collections in all kinds of ways. So it can be a Dropbox link, a Google Drive link. We've done, I've walked across New York with a hard drive in my hand and actually just gotten someone to load things on a hard drive. So we're down to work with people however they're willing to work.
Great. So a question of my own. Actually, another question just popped up. How is it possible to store all this data? Is there a centralized server?
So there is a centralized server. So we maintain a server. All of our information is stored on AWS. It's, the history of the project, even though it's only 7 years old, a lot has taken place in those 7 years, not only from a technology standpoint, but also from, I think, a willingness to, just share archives and get them more out in the open. And so when we first started the project, we were one of the first organizations, I think, approaching institutions and saying, hey, you have these incredible resources. We would love to help you get these out in the open for the public to explore. And the first few partners were like, slightly hesitant at first. They were like, okay, like, who are you guys? And we had to explain that we're a nonprofit. We're just trying to help them. We're trying to help them grow their digital audience. And the more institutions that have gotten on board, the more, it's been a lot easier for us over time to get others participating as well.
So you've talked a lot about expansion. Do you have any thoughts of going beyond the United States eventually?
So we have a partner in Switzerland that we're actually currently dealing with. They've, one of the things that we're actually looking to bring in 2024 as well is multi-language support. And so having kind of standardized menus that can be updated, based on whatever language the person is reaching the website from. And so that's one of the restrictions that we're currently working on with that particular institution. So definitely, we would love for people to use it all over the place.
Very cool. So what can we do to help? What do you need from, from the archival community, I guess?
Yeah, I think that, I think it's more just like spreading a word, letting people know that this is a service that exists. We're constantly thinking of creative ways of fundraising with our institutional partners. And I brought up the example of, doing the Mellon Grant with Queens Public Library. We have a number of foundations and institutions that we're working with to get grants every year. And every year we're kind of switching up what our targets are from like a development standpoint, just thinking about what our roadmap is, new cities that we're looking to onboard and integrate, and thinking of ways that we can, make everything a little bit more streamlined and easier for people to work with.
So Lois wants to know if you have any plans to do anything with Ellis Island and with the immigration records there.
Yeah, so we haven't made contact with Ellis Island officially. I think there's so much that we could do. One of the really cool features that I didn't touch on today is you could actually create historic profiles. So you can tie people to specific locations. And so you can imagine just with, a lot of the old, even white pages that I think New York Public Library actually has old white pages from New York for many generations. And you could actually tie people to specific organizations. You could do really interesting things with the data from Ellis Island. And so those would be really cool projects that, would be, obviously that's a fairly large project, but it's, things that we would love to do in the future. And the more, we're really interested in machine learning, thinking about what we can do with machine learning. And, that I think offers up a lot of new tools, features, and functionality that can actually make some of the, locating and identifying of images a little bit easier in the future as well.
Let's see. So another question from me. What particular project of Urban Archives are you most proud of?
Well, I mean, I think it's just, for me, it's just the partnerships. I love that we get to work with all these different institutions. I love that some of the institutions are huge and a little bit more bureaucratic. Others are super scrappy and they have a very clear message that they want to tell. And I just love the diversity of all of the organizations. And so, the other thing I would just say is, the density or the amount of information that we've been able to collect and to produce with our partners is something that we're really proud of too.
It's really impressive. So if there aren't any more questions, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thanks a lot for having me. It's a privilege to talk to other people that are interested in the archives world. So we're always super excited to have an opportunity like this. And if anybody has any questions, would like to sit down and talk about what we're up to, we would love to do that. And we can give you a tour of some of the things that are up next and some of the things that we've done in the past as well.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us. This was really interesting. And thank you for everyone who came. We're going to keep doing events like this. It's great that everyone logged in on a Thursday night. And thank you again to Ben for taking the time to explain all this.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.